Okay, so in today's video, we're going to be comparing the EVO 2 Pro to the Mavic 3. I think these two are the Goliaths from each company, and I think they both best compare to one another. So if you're somebody who's considering an EVO 2 or a Mavic 3, hopefully this video will help you. We're gonna start this video off with some blind comparisons. Let's get started. So what'd you guys think of that footage? The EVO 2 Pro versus the Mavic 3. I know it's not a super scientific comparison. None of these tests ever are. There's too many things that will change. We tried to fly each of these drones pretty much the same. I don't think, like, okay, you can probably tell because something that we didn't think about was the focal length of the micro four thirds sensor to the 1-inch sensor. It's a big difference with the field of view, and it's probably really, really easy to pick it up. But what did you think of the quality 808?
Quality-wise, since I flew this for 8,500 miles, I like the sharpness that comes straight out of the bird, while Ken here thought that it is over-sharpened. Looking at it in post, though, I can tune that down, but what I have an image, what I have it... fucking blah, blah,
blah, blah. Take 5.
But what I have a problem with on this whole thing is that I have too much magenta, which I have to process in post. While I believe that the Mavic 3 is not as sharp in the image, which I have to also do in post. So pretty much these birds come down to preference, personal preference in general.
Yeah, so what we found was, and what, you know, when I was first looking at the images through the viewfinder, they looked pretty good. The Mavic 3 colors looked like it popped off the iPhone. Now the iPhone uses an LED screen, and because it's an LED screen, it makes things look a little bit more saturated. 808 was looking at it through the triple tack tablet, which tends to sometimes wash images out. So it was really hard to tell, but when we got it back and we put everything side by side, I think the colors are going to be super subjective. But one thing that was really apparent was there was a lot of magenta shift on the EVO 2 Pro where there wasn't a magenta shift. The colors were a lot more natural on the Mavic 3 using the Hasselblad color science. However, the images were just a little bit softer. But as soon as we added a little bit of post sharpness, the image just seemed to pop and have a little bit more texture, which looked really super appealing. But again, it's gonna boil down to which one is easier and which one you're going to have to do more work with. Personally, I rather just add sharpness than have to worry about the different shifts and colors and the hues. But again, some people may say, is it really worth the extra money for this over that? This is $2,100, this one is $1,699. It's about a $500 swing.
Looking at it that way, that I've been owning this for the past 2 years, I would say it's worth the money for the Mavic 3. Simply because you have a bigger field of view. You don't have the problems that you have with this, usually with the horizon level. And that is a big no-no. Even though you have to work with it in post, you're still losing some of the resolution. While with the bigger field of view and no problems with the horizon level, the only difference between these two giants right here comes down to geofencing or not.
I agree. And, you know, for me, seeing that the fact that there is still a horizon shift issue with the EVO 2 Pro is a big problem. Now, I know you can calibrate the horizon manually, but you have to do that each time. It doesn't save that horizon, and seemingly the horizon is always different when you take off. So you will have to calibrate the horizon to not have to deal with that. So there is a way to compensate that. When we compared the log footage, this is where I really think that DJI wins. DJI offers a corrective LUT that allows you to basically drop a LUT and get your contrast and saturation back. Now for these clips, I did manual color grading because I think that the LUT that Autel provides is just not very good. It's not a great LUT. It seems to really skew the blues. It was actually borrowed from Sony, the LUT that they use for that. It's not designed necessarily for the EVO, as to where DJI, they made a LUT specifically for the D-Log on the Mavic 3, and it works really well. So I gotta give the nod to the Mavic 3 when it comes to the D-Log. Now, as far as 6K versus 5.1K, it's really sharp, but there's a lot of over sharpening happening on the EVO. Don't you think?
Yes, plus the magenta shift.
Plus the magenta shift is still present.
And one thing that I've noticed is once my drone is dead, like deactivated, my gimbal is like all over. Yours isn't.
Yeah, no, they have it where it locks the gimbal, which I think is pretty nice. It's easy. It's like when you know, I don't flop around. It's like boxers or something, you know.
Besides that, you have to remember now that in January or February, DJI will come out with a firmware update which will give you master shot and a ton full of intelligent flight modes that probably going to blow the E2P out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, for the price, I mean, $1,600 for another $500, you can probably get this, just have better colors right out of the gate. The field of view is really noticeable. And then as we're looking over these clips, that over sharpening is really distracting. A lot of people have the perception that you need to have a sharp image right out of the gate. And when you're dealing with things in cinema terms, a image that gives you a good canvas to expand on is what you want. And that's where adding that sharpness back to the Mavic 3 really gives you a super pleasing image that looks sort of filmic, as to where the EVO does not. Although it did hold its own. It did punch above its weight class to what I thought it would do. It's gonna be personal preference.
Besides that, I would say, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, we'll be back again with some more comparisons between the EVO 2 Pro and the Mavic 3 in a future video. And check out 808's channel if you already haven't. He's gonna be posting a bit more detailed version of this video on his channel, so be sure to check that out. And as always, guys, stay original.
Aloha.
they checking for me, no one checking on me, so I had to go run up a check. I got the message on me, ain't no flexing on me, my attorney gon' call and collect. Blessings on blessings for me, my successes only made them envious, they got upset. I had to put all their egos in check. I went to